What is the name of this community? Anybody know? Body, that's good. Like the actual name? Like, it doesn't have to get all spiritual. Yeah, Royal City. Pretty good. That's a good answer. Awesome. Yeah. Jeez. What's the name of our meal program? Life Center? Cool, cool. What do we call the actual meals? Agape, right. What is our denomination called? Evangelical Missionary. How many people know much about the Evangelical Missionary Church? Yeah. Joel's pointing at Mark back there. I just want to talk a little bit about our denomination for a second because sometimes it's easy to think of us as an individual, but we're part of the larger. And just like Sunday morning and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are all part of, and Saturday, are all part of this bigger thing, Royal City community. Royal City is part of this bigger, broader community. And how many of you know that the EMC Church, the Evangelical Missionary Church, is also going through the same process that we just went through? Yeah. You know the Post-it notes? Yeah, some of you. You remember the Post-it notes that we asked for? They're doing that, except they don't have fancy Post-it notes. Yeah. Again, I want us to understand the tribe that we're part of. And one of the things that I love about the EMC Church is that they say that they have Christ at the center. And that's a pretty cool thing. Let me just read to you from part of the website, their values. In the EMCC, we function with unity in diversity. We are a diverse group of Canadian followers of Jesus who live with grace and appreciation for unity in essentials, liberty in non-essentials, and love in all things. Our uniqueness is that we are trying to stay centered on living like Jesus, for Jesus, and in the power of the Spirit of Jesus. Is that something you guys can get behind? Yeah, I think so. I love this part, unity in essentials, liberty in non-essentials, and love in all things. The reason why I'm bringing this up is I just wanted to, as we're still figuring out our kind of road, the path, just to give us some rails that the denomination is kind of giving us rails to run on. And then I'm going to interview someone this morning that some of you may or may not know. But I just want to start here. So we elected a new president of the church, which just sounds weird, having a president of the church, but the president of the Church of Canada. And the only 2 times I've heard him speak, he's pulled out this verse. And it has been my verse for a long time. And so I just want to share a few minutes about that verse this morning. And that verse comes from Luke 4:14 to 18. Anybody willing to read that? Want to read it for me? Anybody? Awesome, thank you. You got a... Luke 4:14 to 18.
I got it. Jesus returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit, and news about him spread through the whole countryside. He was teaching in their synagogues, and everyone praised him. He went to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and on the Sabbath day he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor."
Thank you, thank you. Let me read that again for you. If I can find it now. Jesus returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit, and news about him spread throughout the whole countryside. He taught in the synagogues, and everyone praised him. He went to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And on the Sabbath day, he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. And he stood up to read. The scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." I'm going to just read the next verse too. Then he rolled up the scroll and gave it back to the attendant and sat down. The eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fastened on him, and he began by saying to them, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." So just a couple of things. Maybe some of you would understand why I love that verse. I believe God focuses on the poor and not just economic poverty, but in many forms of poverty. Just a little background, though. Jesus has just come out of the desert, 40 days of fasting. He's baptized, and now he's coming into town. And this verse that he's reading actually was known to be pointing to the Messiah. So the Old Testament, it was one of the prophecies of this is about the Messiah. So Jesus stands up, he reads it and says, "This is about me," closes the book, rolls up the scroll, flicks up his screen, sits down. Right? That's about me. And that's what he's saying. That's the start of his ministry. The beginning, he says, "I'm here to give good news to the poor, to release captives, to give recovery of sight, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And just a little aside, the year of the Lord's favor is Jubilee. Jubilee is a year-long party where all of the slaves went free, all of your credit cards were canceled, your mortgage was paid off, the works. It was a party for a year. And Jesus says, this is what I'm instilling. And pointing back to our denomination is saying that Christ is at the center. And says that we are living like Jesus, for Jesus, and in the Spirit of Jesus. So when Curvin, who is the president, read this, he was saying, we're following Jesus into this very thing. But I want you to know that I believe that this verse is specifically about economically poor, people who are physically blind, but it's also about each one of us. That it's metaphorical, that it isn't just the poor who are in need of something to eat. Because Jesus tells us that man shall not live by bread alone. Right? In fact, Mother Teresa used to say that we have poverty, speaking from her voice, that she had poverty of finances, but North America had poverty of spirit. And it isn't just those that are trafficked in human trafficking, but all who are enslaved to money, to addictions, to pornography, whatever it is that you do, to your own looks, whatever, that we need to be freed from. And it isn't just those who are physically blind that need to see. In fact, sometimes the physically blind see better than we do. But those who just can't see Jesus or can't see that stuff inside them that they need to get rid of. So into this Jesus, we're called to follow. That's the call of the denomination. That's exciting to me. Yeah, that's why I wanted to give you the bigger story. And then bringing it back down to the local level, Lisa, why don't you come up? Lisa is one of the people that follows Jesus in this way. For those of you that haven't met Lisa, she has been here since before I got here. 8 years, 7 years? Almost 8 years. And I would say that Lisa is a lifesaver, that I would not have made it this far without Lisa. I would have drowned in... my wife is laughing because she knows it's true. And I've seen her live out these values of releasing the captives, setting the blind free, or giving the blind sight. And I appreciate her. She is incredible to work with. So this is Lisa Laws, everyone. And it's important for you to know her because she makes a lot of the wheels run around here. That we wouldn't have a meal tomorrow night if not for Lisa, and we wouldn't have emails to volunteers, and I'd be doing stuff that would be drowning me. So yeah, Lisa has been doing that for quite some time. So I'm just going to ask her some questions just so you can get to know her, because you should know her, because she's worth knowing. So how long, I already asked how long you've been involved here.
Yeah, does this work?
That's on, yeah. You gotta touch your mouth almost with it.
Oh, okay.
There you go. So tell us about the history of that.
Well, I started volunteering a long time ago, not necessarily here, but in the community from Lakeside. I go to Lakeside Church with Christmas hampers, and things just kind of spiraled from there. And when Hope House opened, I was volunteering quite a bit at Lakeside in outreach type of stuff, and I wanted a job there, but there wasn't a spot for me, and came back here and I was whining to Kevin about it, and he said, why don't you come and work here? It was kind of like, whoa, okay. So anyways, that was, I started in September actually, and you started in December, so it was around the same time. Yeah. And so for a long time, it was just the two of us, and then I was at Hope House and here for a while, and that was just, it was too much. It was too much, and I had to make a choice. Either I stay at Hope House or I stay here, and the way things worked out, I just couldn't leave this community. So, once you're here, you're stuck. It's true. So, anyways, and I'm still here. I can't imagine ever not being part of the community that is downstairs every night, or 2 or 3 nights a week, or during the day when you walk down the street. I'd be missed, or I'd be missed. I would miss them.
No, you'd be missed too.
Sorry.
So just on a note of that, so when we stole Lisa from Hope House, it wasn't on bad terms, it was on good terms. We're still friendly.
Yeah.
And Lisa still connects.
We're still connected. I think not just me, but the Life Center is, we share the same friends. They're there. We're friends with Jaya and the gang down there, and we trade up. I just gave them peppers on Friday, and we're the same community.
Mm-hmm. So this is kind of following up that you said you can't imagine leaving this community. You've said that our guests are not clients or even just guests, but more like family. Can you just talk about that, and then how does that affect your faith in God?
Well, like I said, once you're down here, you're down here, and people become your friends. You come down, and I think a lot of times, myself included in this, you come down and you think, oh, I'm here, I'm going to do some good, and essentially it's to make yourself feel good, really, no matter what everybody says. That's, I think, the initial reason everybody comes down. But then when you start to come down and you see different stories and different perspectives of things, you realize, hey, like, everybody is the same. I might have problems that are a little bit different, but they have problems that are different than mine. And so, and Kevin has different than Brent and me and whoever. And, so it just makes you look at things from a different perspective. But as part of, they're your friends. You hang out with somebody on a regular basis and you get to know them. Either you like them or you don't. And I'm not going to say that I love everybody, and I don't love everybody that I see on the street. I don't love everybody all the time, but they're awesome. And just because I'm mad at somebody today, just like family, right? They're my friend tomorrow. They're your friends. They're my friends. They're your friends. It's a community, which is a lot of times what people need. Like, anybody can come in here, or people that come in can often grab a can of soup, and open up a meal, but who wants to do that every night? Who wants to eat by themselves? Let's go hang out. I like to sit with my family at the dinner table, and so do they. So they're my family. They're my friends. And the way it impacts my faith that's a tough one because, you know, my faith, I'm not going to say it's strong all of the time. Sometimes it wavers. I see things and think, oh my goodness, like how can this be happening again to this person? And sometimes I forget about my faith. You get so busy, you know, and things are, unfortunately, I forget that Jesus is like looking over my shoulder and giving me a shove into situations. But at the end of the day, I feel incredibly blessed, and not only just to be part of the community, to have the support of people like Kevin and my own family, you know, backing me up, because I could not do this without them. And I feel lucky not just to have them as my friends and family, but I feel lucky to be able to go home at the end of the day and sleep in a bed and have people around me that love me. Because a lot of times our friends that come in here don't have that, and they just need that loving support, you know, and a hug or a pat on the shoulder even, or to laugh at their jokes even if they're not funny. And,
Like we just did, right?
yeah.
Laughter. So, you just mentioned how some people's lives are just horrific and things happen again and again. And you had a particular incident at the hospital. Do you know which incident I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
Yeah. And so the harsh reality of what I would say is our class system, some people just don't understand, but people are treated differently in economic circumstances or in medical circumstances. So can you just tell us about that circumstance?
I was down at the hospital with somebody a while ago, and we walked in, and there was maybe one person ahead of us, kind of. And I don't know if you've been into emergency lately, but it's completely different than the last time I was in there with my kids when they were little. And they have this waiting area in the hallway. And I walked in there, and we sat there for ages and ages. And, like, it was something major that was happening to this person. And you know, I think a nurse popped her head out and said, hey, yeah, I'll be with you in a minute. And I actually had to go to them and say, like, this is a problem here. This is something big is happening. And the nurse just kind of brushed it off like it was nothing. Like, oh, he kind of looked at the girl I was with and just shoved it up. Yeah, we'll get to her when we get to her. You know, and then we got inside, and they started asking her questions. And the first question they asked her was, when was the last time you used? You know, and she hadn't used drugs in quite a while, and so quickly to judge, and so harshly the way they spoke to her, it was appalling. It really was, because I thought, if I walked in here on my own, you know, nicely dressed, they'd come over and ask me what they can do and then shove me in to merge, you know, 4 hours later, whatever. But still, I'd be treated with respect. There was no respect going on in this. It was appalling. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to leave her there alone because I thought she's going to sit here on the bench by herself in this traumatic thing that's going on with her, and nobody's giving her any support in the system. It was bad.
But you did have a conversation with someone about that?
I don't even remember.
Yeah. So if you don't, Lisa is a fighter too, so she'll tell you when she's when something's wrong. So I believe that she spoke to one of the administrators at the hospital.
Yeah.
So
I did, actually.
just so you know that.
I just told them, yeah, like, people can't treat people like this. This is what, it was a really big thing. And I was saying, you can't treat people like this, you know, like, and that's exactly what I was just saying. If I walked in here, you wouldn't treat me like this. People do not deserve to be, she's a person, you know, and just because she doesn't look like us or she's had problems in the past, nobody deserves to be treated that way. It's ridiculous.
I used to kind of have this pride around the fact that, like, people were a little intimidated by me here, so they didn't act out of line. But I found out it's just because Lisa's here. So this question, maybe the answer might be in the question. So you work with 28 church partners and over 100 volunteers a week. What's the biggest challenge?
That's funny. Kevin gave me these questions the other day, so I had a heads up on this. I looked at this question, I thought, oh, are you serious? Come on. There's 20 answers to this. I think probably the biggest problem I have to overcome is, just like we were saying, I'm a little blunt and direct. So it's extremely difficult to keep everybody happy all of the time. You know, there's problems. Our friends that come in to eat. You know, there's problems between them, between them and a volunteer, volunteers and each other, volunteers and me, guests and me. Every single day, there is at least one issue that I have to tackle. And well, you know, my husband and my son are there, they'll tell you, I have no qualms with telling somebody, you know, this is what you were doing wrong. And so I think my biggest problem is my own problem, to have to take a step back and kind of walk the walk, really, and talk the talk. So, yeah.
Awesome.
And keeping everybody happy, that is really hard.
So just a question. So you're not really an outsider, but you've been part of the meals, but not necessarily part of the gathering portion of our community. And so you've been watching actually our vision process and these things about one community coming out. And what do you think of that? Like, what would your perspective on that be?
I think it's an awesome idea to be one community, because if we're all supposed to be the hands and feet of Jesus, like what better way than to have the church and the center connected with each other? I strongly encourage anybody in here who hasn't been down to even come down and have a coffee on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday night or a Monday, even Saturday, and just see what goes on there, because it's really not that much different than dinner at your own house. It's just more people. So the opportunity to blend the two together, it just seems like a no-brainer, really. It's got to be done.
Thank you.
Glad it's you that's doing it, not me.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to say that
I don't think so.
you've experienced? No. Well, thank you, Lisa.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lisa Laws. I'm going to have the band come back up. We're just going to close with a song. You guys still around? And then make sure you stay around to drink coffee. Talk to Lisa, because she's not always here on a Sunday morning. If you haven't talked with her, she won't tell you off, I promise. That is a gift, to be honest. Sometimes we think that sometimes our greatest strengths are our greatest weakness, and she talked about it as a weakness, but it's also a strength in that she's able to get things done, and she's directive. She keeps me on track, and so yes, it's both a blessing and a curse for her, but we appreciate her.